After the Spanish-American War, while the American public and politicians debated the annexation question, Filipino revolutionaries under Aguinaldo seized control of most of the Philippines' main island of Luzon and proclaimed the establishment of the independent Philippine Republic when it became clear that U.S. forces were intent on opposing American colonial control over the islands. The early clash between the two sides in 1899 swelled into an all-out war. Americans tended to refer to the ensuing conflict as an insurrection rather than acknowledge the Filipinos' contention that they were fighting to ward off a foreign invader.
There were two phases to the Philippine-American War. The first phase, from February to November of 1899, was dominated by Aguinaldo's ill-fated attempts to fight conventional war against the better trained and equipped American troops. The second phase was marked by the Filipino shift to guerrilla-style warfare. It began in November of 1899, lasted through the capture of Aguinaldo in 1901, and into the spring 1902, by which time most organized Filipino resistance has dissipated. President Theodore Roosevelt proclaimed a general amnesty and declared the conflict over only on July 4, 1902. Although minor uprising and insurrection against American rule periodically occurred in the years that followed, the United States entered the conflict with undeniable military advantage that include a trained fighting force, a steady supply of military equipment, and control of archipelago's waterways. Meanwhile, the Filipino forces were hampered by their inability to gain any kind of outside support for their causes. Chronic shortage of weapons and ammunition and complication produced by the Philippines. Geographic complexity. Under this condition, Aguinaldo's attempt to fight a conventional war in the first few months of the conflict proved to be a fatal mistake. The Filipino army suffered severe losses in men and material before switching to the guerrilla tactics that might have been more effective if employed from the beginning of the conflict.
The war was brutal on both sides. U.S. forces at the time burned villages, implemented civilian reconcentration policies, and employed torture and suspected guerrillas, while Filipino fighters also tortured captured soldiers and terrorized civilians who cooperated with American forces. Many civilians died during the conflict as a result of the fighting. Cholera and malaria epidemics and food shortage caused by several agricultural catastrophes. Even as the fighting went on, the colonial government of the United States established in the Philippines in 1900 under the future President William Howard Taft launched a pacification campaign that became known as the Policy of Attraction, designed to win over key elites and other Filipinos who did not embrace Aguinaldo's plans for the Philippines. These policies permitted a significant degree of self-government, introduced social reforms, and implemented plans for economics. Over time, this program gained important Filipino adherents and undermined the revolutionary popular appeal, which significantly aided the United States military effort to win the war. In 1907, the Filipino convened its first elected assembly, and in 1916, the Jones Act promised the nation eventually independence. The archipelago became an autonomous commonwealth in 1935, and the U.S. granted independence in 1946.